Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through another narrow maintenance shaft. The ship's air recycling system needed fixing again, and he was the only one small enough to reach the broken parts. This was his life on the mining ship New Frontier, fixing things that broke in the deep darkness of space. "Jake, you done yet?" Captain Lisa Grant's voice crackled through his headset. "We need to get moving soon." "Almost finished, Captain," Jake replied, tightening the last bolt. "Give me 10 more minutes." Jake had been working on ships for 5 years now. He was not the smartest person on the crew, and he was not the strongest. But he was good at fixing things, and he did not mind crawling into small spaces that scared other people. The pay was decent, and he liked seeing new places, even if those places were usually empty space and floating rocks. As he made his way back to the main deck, he heard excitement in the crew's voices. Dr. Ben Carter was pointing at something on the main screen, his eyes wide with wonder. "What's all the fuss about?" Jake asked Amy Rodriguez, the communications officer. "Look at that," Amy said, pointing at the screen. "We found something big." Jake looked at the main display. Floating in the middle of an asteroid field was something that definitely did not belong there. It looked like a huge crystal palace, all sharp angles and glowing blue light. It was easily 10 times bigger than their ship. "Is it a ship?" Jake asked. "We don't know," Dr. Carter said. "It's not like anything in our databases. The materials are unknown and it's giving off strange energy readings." Captain Grant studied the object carefully. "Any signs of life?" "None that we can detect," Amy reported. "But our scanners might not work well on those unknown materials." "It could be worth a fortune," said Nick Palmer, the security chief. "Look at the size of it. Even if it's just scrap metal, we could retire on what we'd get for it." Jake stared at the crystal structure. Something about it made him feel strange, like it was calling to him. He shook his head, thinking he was just tired from working in the tight spaces. "We should check it out," Jake said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him with surprise. Jake was usually quiet during crew meetings. "It could be dangerous," Captain Grant said. "We don't know who built it or what it does." "But we can't just leave it here," Jake argued. "What if someone else finds it first? This could change everything for us." Dr. Carter nodded. "Jake has a point. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. We should at least take a closer look." After much discussion, the crew decided to investigate. They would send a small team in spacesuits to check if the structure was safe to enter. Jake volunteered immediately, which surprised everyone again. "Are you sure?" Captain Grant asked. "This isn't like fixing a broken pipe, Jake. This could be really dangerous." "I know," Jake said. "But someone has to go, and I'm good at figuring out how things work." 3 hours later, Jake floated through space toward the crystal structure. Nick Palmer and Dr. Carter were with him, all three wearing their best spacesuits and carrying safety equipment. As they got closer, the structure looked even more amazing. The crystal walls seemed to pulse with inner light, and Jake could see complex patterns carved into the surface. It was clearly built by someone with technology far beyond human knowledge. "There's an opening here," Nick reported over the radio. They found what looked like a doorway, though it was much taller than any human would need. The opening glowed with soft blue light, and Jake could feel a gentle pull like the structure wanted them to enter. "Air pressure is good inside," Dr. Carter said, reading his instruments. "Temperature is comfortable. It's like someone prepared this place for visitors." The 3 men entered the structure carefully. Inside, the walls were covered with amazing artwork and symbols that seemed to move when Jake was not looking directly at them. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness above. "This is incredible," Dr. Carter whispered. "This technology is thousands of years ahead of ours." They walked deeper into the structure, following a wide hallway that led to what looked like a large room. In the center of the room stood a tall crystal pillar, glowing brighter than anything else they had seen. "Don't touch anything," Nick warned. "We don't know what any of this does." But Jake felt drawn to the crystal pillar. As he got closer, he could hear something like music in his head, soft and beautiful. The crystal seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. "Jake, stay back," Dr. Carter called. Jake tried to stop, but his feet kept moving forward. The music in his head grew louder, and he could see lights dancing inside the crystal. Without thinking, he reached out and placed his hand on the smooth surface. The moment his skin touched the crystal, the entire structure came alive. Lights blazed everywhere, and Jake felt something rush into his mind like a powerful wave. He saw images of alien worlds, advanced cities, and strange beings with large eyes and flowing robes. "Jake!" Nick shouted, but his voice seemed far away. Jake could not move or speak. The crystal was showing him things, memories that were not his own. He saw a beautiful alien woman with silver skin and eyes like stars. She was sad and lonely, searching for something she had lost long ago. Suddenly, Jake understood. This was not just a crystal. It was a connection device. And he had just connected to someone on the other side of the galaxy. The alien woman in his vision looked directly at him, and her eyes went wide with shock. She spoke words he could not understand, but somehow he knew what she meant. Finally, you have come. The crystal released him, and Jake fell backward into Nick's arms. The entire structure began to change, walls shifting and new lights appearing everywhere. We need to get out of here, Nick said. But it was too late. Outside, through the crystal walls, Jake could see massive ships appearing from nowhere. They were sleek and beautiful, but also clearly powerful weapons of war. The new frontier looked like a tiny toy next to them. Captain Grant, Jake said into his radio, his voice shaking. We have a problem. A very big problem. Captain Lisa Grant stared at the main screen in disbelief. 12 massive alien ships had appeared around them in seconds, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their sleek surfaces glowed with the same blue light as the crystal structure, and they moved with perfect coordination. Jake, get back here now, she ordered into her radio. We're trying, Captain, Nick's voice crackled back. But something's wrong with Jake. He touched something, and now he's acting strange. Inside the crystal structure, Jake stood perfectly still, his eyes closed and his face peaceful. Dr. Carter waved his scanner over Jake's body, getting readings he had never seen before. His brain activity is off the charts, Dr. Carter reported. It's like he's having a conversation with someone, but there's no one here. Jake was indeed having a conversation, though not with words. Images and feelings flowed through his mind from the alien woman he had seen in the crystal. Her name was Queen Ziria, and she was very old and very powerful. She ruled an empire that stretched across hundreds of star systems. Through their strange connection, Jake learned that Queen Ziria had been performing an ancient ceremony when he touched the crystal. The ceremony was supposed to find her a partner, someone to help her lead her people and share the burden of ruling such a vast empire. The ceremony had been waiting for over 1,000 years for the right person to activate it. I don't understand, Jake thought. And somehow she heard him. Neither do I, Queen Ziria replied in his mind. The ceremony was meant for my own people, but it has chosen you, a human. This has never happened before. Jake could feel her confusion and surprise, but also something else. Hope. She had been alone for so long, making difficult decisions that affected billions of lives. The weight of her responsibility was crushing, and she had been searching for someone who could help her carry it. I'm just an engineer, Jake thought. I fix broken things. I don't know anything about ruling people. Perhaps that is why you were chosen, she replied. Sometimes the most important problems require simple solutions. Meanwhile, on the new frontier, Captain Grant was trying to figure out what to do. The alien ships had not attacked, but they had not tried to communicate either. They just waited, surrounding the small human vessel like sharks circling prey. Any response to our signals? Captain Grant asked Amy. Nothing, Captain. I've tried every frequency we know, but they're not answering. Suddenly, Jake's voice came over the radio, but it sounded different, calmer and more confident than usual. Captain, I need you to listen carefully. The beings on those ships are called Valderans. Their queen wants to meet with you. She says to bring Dr. Carter and leave your weapons behind. Jake, where are you? Captain Grant demanded. I'm still in the crystal structure, but I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I can understand them now, Captain. They're not here to hurt us. Dr. Carter looked at his scanner again. Captain, something is definitely happening to Jake. His brain patterns have completely changed. An hour later, Captain Grant and Dr. Carter found themselves in a shuttlecraft approaching the largest alien ship. Jake had convinced them it was safe, though neither of them felt very sure about that. The alien ship was beautiful inside, with curved walls that seemed to be made of living crystal. Strange plants grew from the floors and walls, giving off soft light. The air smelled like flowers and rain. They were led through long hallways by tall aliens in flowing robes. The aliens had silver skin and large dark eyes, and they moved with perfect grace. None of them spoke, but they seemed to communicate with each other through small gestures and changes in expression. Finally, they reached a vast chamber with a high ceiling covered in moving stars. In the center of the room, on a throne made of the same glowing crystal as the structure, sat Queen Ziria. She was the most beautiful being Captain Grant had ever seen. Her silver skin seemed to glow from within, and her dark eyes held wisdom that came from living for centuries. When she spoke, her voice was like music. "Welcome, humans," Queen Ziria said, and somehow they understood her perfectly. "I apologize for the sudden meeting, but circumstances have become complicated." "Where is Jake?" Captain Grant asked. "He is safe," the Queen replied. "But he is changing. The bonding ceremony has connected our minds and our destinies. He is learning about my people, and I am learning about yours." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "What kind of bonding? Is Jake in danger?" Queen Ziria looked sad. "I do not know. This has never happened with an alien species before. The ceremony was designed for my own people, to create a partnership of minds that would help rule our empire. But it chose your Jake, and now we are connected whether we wish it or not." "Can you break the connection?" Captain Grant asked. "Perhaps," Queen Ziria said, "but it would likely kill both of us. The bonding goes very deep." As they talked, Jake walked into the chamber. But he was not the same Jake who had left their ship. He stood taller and moved with new confidence. His eyes held a strange light, and when he spoke, his words carried weight they had never had before. "Captain, Dr. Carter, I know this is hard to understand," Jake said, "but something amazing has happened. I can see things now, problems and solutions that I never could before. And Queen Ziria needs our help." "What kind of help?" Dr. Carter asked. Queen Ziria gestured, and the stars on the ceiling changed to show a map of space. Red dots appeared on many star systems, moving slowly but steadily toward Valdoran territory. "We face an enemy called the Devourers," Queen Ziria explained. "They are machines that consume all life. They have already destroyed 12 of our worlds, and our traditional defenses cannot stop them." Jake looked at the map, and suddenly he could see patterns that the Valdorans had missed. His human mind worked differently than theirs, finding connections and possibilities they could not see. "They adapt to your attacks," Jake said. "Every time you fight them the same way, they learn and get stronger. You need to be unpredictable." "Unpredictable?" Queen Ziria asked. "Random, chaotic. Do things that don't make sense," Jake explained. "Humans are good at that. We had to be, to survive on our world." An alien commander entered the chamber, his face showing disapproval. He spoke quickly in the Valdoran language, and Queen Ziria's expression grew troubled. "Commander Keth believes the bonding was a mistake," she translated. "He thinks humans are too primitive to help us." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but also something else. A deep understanding of strategy and politics that came from his connection with Queen Ziria. "Then let me prove him wrong," Jake said. "Give me a chance to show what humans can do." Queen Ziria looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well, but know that if you fail, both our peoples may pay the price." As Captain Grant and Dr. Carter were escorted back to their ship, they left Jake behind on the alien vessel. Neither of them knew if they would ever see their friend again, or if the Jake they knew still existed. But Jake felt more alive than he ever had before. Through his bond with Queen Ziria, he could sense the vast empire she ruled and the millions of lives that depended on her decisions. He could also sense the approaching threat of the Devourers, growing stronger with each world they consumed. For the first time in his life, Jake Morrison had found a problem that truly mattered, and he was determined to solve it. Jake stood in the war room of Queen Ziria's flagship, staring at displays that showed the movement of the Devourer fleets. The mechanical enemies had just finished consuming another Valdoran colony world, leaving nothing behind but empty space and floating debris. "They took Keelan Prime in less than 6 hours," Commander Keith reported, his voice filled with frustration. "Our defenses held for only minutes before they adapted." Jake studied the battle recordings. The Devourers fought like a perfect machine, efficient, logical, and completely predictable. They learned from each encounter, becoming stronger and more effective with every victory. "Show me how you usually fight them," Jake said. Commander Keth looked annoyed at taking orders from a human, but Queen Ziria nodded for him to continue. The display showed Valdoran battle formations, perfectly organized with each ship in its proper place and every movement calculated for maximum efficiency. "Your formations are beautiful," Jake said honestly, "but they're too predictable. The Devourers can calculate exactly what you'll do next." "Our tactics have been refined over thousands of years," Commander Keth replied coldly. They represent the perfect balance of offense and defense. That's the problem, Jake said. Perfect things are easy to predict. Through his mental bond with Queen Xeria, Jake could feel her curiosity. She was beginning to understand that human minds worked very differently from Valdoran ones. Explain, she said gently. Jake walked to the display and began moving the ship formations around randomly. To the Valdoran observers, his movements looked chaotic and wrong. Humans evolved on a dangerous world, Jake explained. We had predators that were bigger and stronger than us. We survived by being unpredictable. When a tiger chased our ancestors, the ones who ran in straight lines got eaten. The ones who zigzagged and did unexpected things lived to have children. He paused the display and pointed to his chaotic formation. This looks wrong to you because your people evolved to be logical and efficient. But to the Devourers, this chaos would be impossible to calculate. Elder Mira, an old Valdoran advisor, leaned forward with interest. You speak of controlled randomness. But how can random actions win battles? They can't, Jake admitted. But they can confuse the enemy long enough for you to hit them where they don't expect it. Over the next few days, Jake worked with Dr. Carter and the other human crew members to develop new tactics. Captain Grant had agreed to let her crew help, seeing this as humanity's chance to prove itself to an advanced alien civilization. Amy Rodriguez helped develop new communication methods that used human idioms and references the Devourers could not understand. Nick Palmer worked on irregular patrol patterns that would be impossible for machines to predict. Dr. Carter studied Devourer technology, looking for weaknesses that logical minds might miss. Jake spent most of his time with Queen Xeria, their mental bond growing stronger each day. Through their connection, he learned about the vast complexity of ruling an interstellar empire. Every decision affected billions of lives, and the weight of responsibility was enormous. How do you bear it? Jake asked during one of their private conversations. I have no choice, Queen Xeria replied. My people depend on me. But I have been alone for so long, making these decisions by myself. The bond we share and it helps. Your mind brings perspective I never had before. Jake could feel her loneliness, centuries of isolation at the top of a vast hierarchy. But he could also feel her strength and dedication to her people. You're not alone anymore, he said simply. The first test of their new tactics came when a Devourer scout force approached the outer colony of Mirax. Instead of meeting them with traditional formations, Jake convinced Queen Xeria to try something different. The Valdoran fleet approached the Devourers in what looked like a standard formation. But as the battle began, the ship suddenly broke apart and started moving in seemingly random patterns. Some ships retreated when they should have attacked. Others charged forward when retreat made more sense. The Devourers tried to adapt, but their calculations kept failing. Every time they predicted what the Valdorans would do next, the humans suggested something completely different. Now, Jake said into the communication system, the scattered Valdoran ships suddenly coordinated their fire on a single Devourer vessel. The enemy had been so busy trying to calculate the chaos around them that they missed the real attack until it was too late. The battle was a complete victory. For the first time in years, the Valdorans had destroyed a Devourer force without losing a single ship. Commander Keth stared at the battle reports in amazement. I do not understand how this worked. That's exactly why it worked, Jake said. If you can't understand it, neither can they. Word of the victory spread quickly through the Valdoran Empire. Other commanders requested human advisors, wanting to learn these new tactics. The humans from the new frontier found themselves in high demand, each bringing their own unique perspective to ancient problems. But Jake knew this was only the beginning. Through his bond with Queen Xeria, he could sense the main Devourer fleet, a massive armada that dwarfed anything they had faced so far. The enemy was adapting to their new tactics, becoming more unpredictable themselves. They're learning, Jake told Queen Xeria during one of their strategy sessions. The small victories won't work against the main fleet. Then what do you suggest? She asked. Jake looked at the star map, seeing the approaching threat that would arrive in less than a month. An idea began forming in his mind, something so crazy and risky that no logical species would ever attempt it. We need to think bigger, he said. Not just unpredictable tactics, but an unpredictable strategy. Something that goes against every rule of warfare. Queen Xeria could sense his thoughts through their bond, and her eyes widened with alarm. That plan, it could destroy us all. Or it could save everyone, Jake replied. Sometimes you have to risk everything to win everything. As the days passed, Jake and Queen Ziria worked together to refine his impossible plan. She contributed her vast knowledge of Valdoran resources and capabilities, while he provided the human gift for creative chaos. Their bond had grown so strong that they could communicate without words, sharing thoughts and emotions as easily as breathing. Jake was no longer just an engineer who had accidentally activated an alien ceremony. He had become something new, a bridge between two very different ways of thinking. But the most dangerous test was yet to come. The main Devourer fleet was approaching, and with it would come the ultimate challenge to everything Jake and Queen Ziria had built together. Standing together in the war room, looking at the approaching threat, Jake felt both fear and excitement. His life had been simple once, fixing broken machines on a mining ship. Now he was helping plan the defense of an entire civilization. "Are you ready?" Queen Ziria asked, both aloud and through their mental link. Jake squeezed her silver hand in his human one. "Ready or not, here we go." The attack came without warning. A massive Devourer fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Caldris, one of the most important Valdoran colony worlds. Unlike the small scout forces they had fought before, this fleet contained over 200 enemy ships, all perfectly coordinated and deadly efficient. "They're heading straight for the planet," Commander Keth reported from the bridge of his command ship. "Estimated time to orbital bombardment, 4 hours. Jake stood beside Queen Ziria on the flagship, watching the enemy approach on the main display. Through their mental bond, he could feel her fear, not for herself but for the 8 million Valdorans living on Caldris. "Our traditional defense fleet is already in position," she said, "but we have learned that traditional tactics will not work against these enemies." "Then it's time to try something completely new," Jake replied. Jake had spent weeks preparing for this moment, working with Captain Grant and her crew to develop a battle plan that would have seemed insane to any military commander. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, they would let the Devourers think they were winning while secretly preparing a trap. "Signal all ships," Jake said into the communication system. "Begin Operation Chaos." The Valdoran defense fleet started their approach to the Devourer armada, but instead of forming the precise battle lines the enemy expected, the ships spread out in what looked like panic. Some vessels appeared to retreat immediately, while others charged forward alone against impossible odds. "Sir, our formations are falling apart," a young Valdoran officer reported to Commander Keth, confusion clear in his voice. "That is exactly what we want them to think," Commander Keth replied. It had taken weeks for him to understand Jake's strategy, but now he was one of its strongest supporters. The Devourers responded exactly as Jake had predicted. Seeing the apparent chaos in the Valdoran ranks, they increased their speed and broke their own formation to pursue what they thought were retreating ships. "They're taking the bait," Amy Rodriguez reported from her position on the communication team. "Enemy formation is scattering." This was the critical moment. The Devourers had always fought as one perfectly coordinated machine. But now, thinking they were chasing panicked enemies, they had split apart to catch as many victims as possible. "Now," Jake said quietly. Captain Grant, commanding a mixed squadron of human and Valdoran ships, emerged from behind Caldris's largest moon. Her ships had been hiding there for hours, powered down and invisible to enemy sensors. At the same time, the retreating Valdoran ships suddenly stopped running and turned to fight. The scattered Devourers found themselves surrounded, cut off from each other and unable to coordinate their defenses. "Focus fire on the command ships," Jake ordered. Through his research, he had learned that the Devourers relied on central coordination units to direct their fleets. Destroy those units and the rest would become confused. Nick Palmer led a group of smaller ships in fast attacks against the Devourer command vessels. His security background had taught him to identify weak points, and he applied those skills to alien technology with deadly effectiveness. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Valdoran ships used their superior technology and firepower, while human crews provided the unpredictable tactics that kept the enemy off balance. Jake coordinated everything through his mental link with Queen Ziria, their combined perspective allowing them to see the entire battlefield at once. "Enemy command ship destroyed," Dr. Carter reported from his science vessel. "Their coordination is breaking down." Jake watched as the Devourer fleet began to malfunction. Without their command ships, the individual vessels started acting independently, some retreating while others continued to attack. Their perfect machine efficiency was replaced by chaos. "They're trying to regroup," Queen Ziria observed, her enhanced senses picking up enemy communication attempts. "Not if I can help it," Jake replied. He had one more surprise prepared. Throughout the battle, Amy had been broadcasting false communication signals that sounded like Valdoran military codes, but were actually random gibberish. The Devourers, trying to understand their enemy's coordination, had been analyzing these signals and feeding them into their learning algorithms. "Amy, activate the virus," Jake ordered. The false communication signal suddenly changed, becoming a complex pattern designed to overload the Devourer learning systems. The enemy ships that had been analyzing the fake codes found their own computers crashing as they tried to process impossible data. "Direct hit on enemy coordination," Amy reported with satisfaction. "They're dead in the water." The remaining Devourer ships, cut off from all command and control, began firing randomly or fleeing in different directions. What had been a perfectly organized fleet was now a collection of confused individual units. "All ships, advance and destroy the remaining enemies," Commander Keth ordered, his voice filled with newfound respect for human tactics. The battle ended in complete victory for the Valdorans. Not a single enemy ship escaped, and the colony world of Caldris was saved. More importantly, they had proven that the Devourers could be defeated when faced with tactics they could not predict or understand. In the aftermath, Jake stood with Queen Ziria on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the debris field that had once been an unstoppable enemy fleet. Through their bond, he could feel her amazement and gratitude. "Your people have given mine something we had forgotten," she said aloud for the benefit of the other officers present. "Hope." Commander Keith approached them, his previous hostility replaced by genuine respect. "I owe you an apology, Jake Morrison. I thought humans were too primitive to help us. I was wrong." "We're not more advanced than you," Jake replied. "We're just different. Sometimes different is exactly what you need." News of the victory spread quickly through the Valdoran Empire. Other worlds requested human advisors, eager to learn the new tactics that had achieved the impossible. The crew of the New Frontier found themselves treated as heroes, their simple mining ship now escorted by some of the most powerful vessels in the galaxy. But Jake knew their success would not last long. Through his expanded awareness, he could sense the main Devourer fleet still approaching, a massive armada that made the force they had just defeated look tiny in comparison. "They'll adapt to our tactics," he told Queen Ziria during one of their private conversations. "The next battle will be much harder. Then we must be ready to adapt as well," she replied. "You have taught us that change is not something to fear, but something to embrace." Jake looked out at the stars, thinking about how much his life had changed. 6 months ago, he had been a simple engineer fixing broken pipes. Now he was helping plan the defense of entire star systems, bonded to an alien queen who ruled billions of lives. The strangest part was that it felt right. Through his connection with Queen Ziria, he had found a purpose he never knew he was looking for. Together they were becoming something greater than either could be alone. "The real test is coming," Jake said. "When the main fleet arrives, we'll need more than just clever tactics. We'll need a miracle." Queen Ziria smiled, her silver features beautiful in the starlight. "Then it is fortunate that humans seem to specialize in miracles." As their ship jumped to hyperspace, heading back to the heart of the Valdoran Empire, Jake felt both excitement and fear about what lay ahead. The ultimate battle was approaching, and with it would come the true test of everything they had built together. The main Devourer fleet arrived like a storm of metal and death. Over 3,000 ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Valdoran territory, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. Each ship was larger than anything the Valdorans had built, and together they formed an armada that could destroy entire solar systems. Jake stood in the command center of the Valdoran capital world, watching the enemy approach on displays that showed the entire galaxy. Through his bond with Queen Ziria, he could feel the fear of billions of her people, all looking to their leaders for salvation. "They're heading straight for our core worlds," Commander Keth reported. "At their current speed, they'll reach the capital in 72 hours. How many ships do we have to stop them?" Jake asked. 800 of our best vessels," Queen Ziria replied. "But even with our new tactics, the numbers are impossible." Jake studied the approaching fleet, his mind working through possibilities that would have seemed insane just months before. The simple engineer who had once fixed broken pipes was gone, replaced by someone who thought in terms of entire star systems and the fate of civilizations. "We can't beat them in a straight fight," he said finally, "so we don't fight them straight." Over the next 3 days, Jake worked with Queen Ziria to prepare the most audacious plan in military history. Instead of defending their worlds, they would appear to abandon them, leading the entire Devourer fleet into a trap that spanned multiple star systems. "This is madness," Elder Mira said when she heard the plan. "You want us to evacuate our most important worlds and let the enemy occupy them?" "Only temporarily," Jake explained. "The Devourers expect us to defend our homes. They've built their entire strategy around overcoming static defenses. But what if there's nothing to defend?" Captain Grant, now serving as Jake's chief tactical advisor, helped explain the details. "We make them think they're winning. Let them spread out to occupy our abandoned worlds. Then we hit them when they're scattered and vulnerable." The plan required precise timing and perfect coordination across dozens of star systems. Every Valderan ship would have to play its part exactly right, or the entire trap would collapse. "The risk is enormous," Queen Ziria said during one of their planning sessions. "If we fail, we lose everything." "If we don't try, we lose everything anyway," Jake replied. "Sometimes you have to bet it all on a single moment." The evacuation began immediately. Millions of Valderans left their homes, taking only what they could carry and trusting their leaders to bring them back safely. It was the largest movement of people in galactic history, and it had to be completed before the Devourers arrived. Amy Rodriguez coordinated the refugee fleets, using her communication skills to manage the chaos of moving entire populations. Dr. Carter worked with Valderan scientists to hide essential facilities and resources where the enemy couldn't find them. Nick Palmer organized the security forces that would protect the evacuated civilians. As the Devourer fleet entered Valderan space, they found system after system apparently abandoned. The enemy ships spread out to occupy the empty worlds just as Jake had predicted they would. "They're taking the bait," Commander Keth reported from his hidden position in the outer system. "Enemy forces are spreading across 17 star systems." This was the moment Jake had been preparing for. Through his mental link with Queen Ziria, he could coordinate with every Valdoran commander simultaneously, turning their entire fleet into an extension of his will. "Begin Operation Final Hope," he ordered. Hidden Valdoran fleets emerged from asteroid fields, behind planets and from deep space where they had been waiting in complete silence. But instead of attacking immediately, they began an intricate dance that looked like chaos but was actually carefully planned confusion. Jake had learned that the Devourers adapted to patterns, so he made sure there were no patterns to adapt to. Every ship moved independently, every attack came from an unexpected direction, and every retreat led the enemy into another trap. "They're trying to coordinate a response," Queen Ziria observed, her enhanced senses monitoring enemy communications. "But our movements are too random for their calculations." The battle raged across multiple star systems simultaneously. Valderan ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing before the enemy could respond. The Devourers, spread thin across conquered worlds, found themselves fighting dozens of separate battles without being able to help each other. But Jake's masterstroke was yet to come. Hidden within the apparent chaos of the battle was a subtle pattern that gradually herded the scattered Devourer forces toward a single location, an empty star system that held nothing but a dying red giant star. "All enemy forces are converging on the Nexus system," Amy reported from her coordination post. "They think they're chasing our main fleet." "Time for the finale," Jake said. As the Devourer fleet gathered in the Nexus system, preparing to destroy what they thought was the last Valdoran resistance, Jake sprang his final trap. Captain Grant led a small squadron of ships that had been hiding inside the red giant's corona, using the star's radiation to mask their presence. Deploying the resonance devices, Captain Grant reported. The devices were a combination of human creativity and Valderan technology, machines that could destabilize a dying star and cause it to collapse into a black hole. It was the most dangerous weapon ever created, and using it required precise timing and incredible courage. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance," Jake ordered. The Valderan fleet pulled back as the resonance devices activated. The dying red giant began to collapse, its massive gravity well pulling everything nearby into an inescapable spiral. The Devourer fleet tried to escape, but they had been positioned too perfectly by Jake's careful herding. One by one, their ships were caught by the forming black hole and torn apart by gravitational forces no technology could resist. In less than an hour, the massive armada that had threatened to destroy all organic life was gone, consumed by the very forces of the universe itself. The war was over. In the aftermath, Jake stood with Queen Xeria on the observation deck of her flagship, watching as Valdoran civilians returned to their homes. The evacuated worlds were being reoccupied, and the threat that had loomed over the galaxy for years was finally ended. "You did it," Queen Xeria said, her voice filled with wonder. "You saved us all." "We did it," Jake corrected. "I could never have managed any of this without your knowledge and your people's trust." Through their bond, he could feel her contentment and the deep satisfaction of a job well done. But he could also sense something else, a love that had grown slowly over months of shared danger and triumph. "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now we build something new," Queen Xeria replied. "An empire that values different ways of thinking, that sees diversity as strength rather than weakness." Commander Keth approached them, his respect for Jake now complete and unwavering. "The High Council has voted unanimously. They want you to become our official strategic advisor, with full authority over military planning." Jake looked at Queen Xeria, seeing his own feelings reflected in her alien but beautiful features. "I accept, but only if my people can help. Humans and Valdorans working together." "Of course," Queen Xeria said. "We have learned that the best solutions come from combining different perspectives." Months later, Jake stood in the same crystal structure where his adventure had begun. But now he wasn't alone. The chamber had been converted into a joint command center where humans and Valdorans worked side by side, planning the peaceful expansion of their combined civilizations. Captain Grant commanded a fleet of exploration ships, searching for new worlds and new species to befriend. Dr. Carter led research teams that combined human creativity with Valdoran precision, making discoveries that neither species could have achieved alone. Amy Rodriguez managed communications across hundreds of star systems, and Nick Palmer trained joint security forces to protect their growing alliance. Jake had grown into his role as co-ruler of the Valdoran Empire. The scared engineer who had once fixed broken pipes was now a confident leader who helped make decisions affecting trillions of lives. But he never forgot where he came from or the simple human values that had made their victory possible. "Any regrets?" Queen Xeria asked as they watched the sun set through the crystal walls. Jake thought about his old life aboard the New Frontier, the simple routine of maintenance and repair. It seemed like a lifetime ago, though it had been less than a year. "None," he said honestly. "Sometimes the best things happen when you're just trying to fix what's broken." Queen Xeria smiled, her silver hand finding his human one. "And sometimes what seems broken is exactly what the universe needs." Together they looked out at the stars, seeing not empty space but infinite possibilities. Jake Morrison, the accidental partner of an alien queen, had found his destiny among the stars. And in doing so, he had helped both their peoples find a future filled with hope. The galaxy was a big place, full of wonders and dangers yet to be discovered. But whatever came next, humans and Valdorans would face it together, proving that the greatest strength came not from perfect logic or superior technology, but from the courage to embrace the unknown and the wisdom to value what makes each species unique. Jake's destiny had indeed taken a shocking turn, but it was a turn that led to